Well, I'm out here in the shop again today. Had a project last week working here on my Coleman Powermate 5000 generator. I've been having some trouble with it. I bought this generator new, and I don't know, it'd been sitting in storage for at least 10 years. And I got it out last week. I needed to do a project outdoors. Fired it up. No problem at all. Made electricity. I worked on part of the project. I shut it off several times. And then I went to finish up my project, and the thing quit making power. And I went through the whole re-exciting process to establish polarity back into the generator, and couldn't ever get it to work. So I thought I'd run through some steps of some things that maybe might help someone if they run into the same thing. I don't know a whole lot about generators. This has the Tecumseh engine, 10 horsepower. Of course, the engine runs okay, runs fine. I see a lot of these generators at flea markets, garage sales, auctions, and I'm always a little leery because they say, well, the motor runs fine, engine's running great, but it won't make power. So you always gotta use a little bit of caution in those situations. But I think I'd be a little more willing to pop down, $40 or $50 for one of these things, knowing what I know now. If you go through your manual, if you have one of these units, some of the older units, and then since, I believe, had like a black plastic square affair here with a little access plate that you could pop off and replace the brushes one at a time. This is a little different design with the round plate in the back. And let me tell you 3 things that are pretty simple that can go wrong with these and might help someone out. I don't know, someone in the same situation as I was. I had to do some research, and I'd just about given up when I finally figured out what was going on with this thing. First of all, these things will lose their polarity. I got this thing brand new out of the box, would not make power, and I called tech support, and they ran me through the process of how you re-excite the generator. And the process is, it's fairly simple, is they tell you to turn the power, the ignition switch on. Why, I don't know. I don't think it would make any difference, but that's what they told me. Turn the ignition switch on. Take the spark plug wire off so the thing will start. And then what you do is you make a pigtail plug, just a regular 20 amp plug to go in the receptacle here. Wire up 2 wires coming out of it, and then you take some jumper cables, hook it up to your pickup or your car, and a 12-volt battery, basically. You want the positive to go to the more narrow plug, the blade that goes into the receptacle. The wider portion of the receptacle should be wired to negative. And what you do, and it's going to spark when you hook it up. I certainly wouldn't want to leave it hooked up very long, but you put the 12-volt power to it, again negative to the wide side, positive to the more narrow side, and you pull the rope 5 times. You immediately unplug that thing, get the juice stopped, and you immediately reconnect the spark plug wire, and you fire it up, and it should make power. It's been re-excited. Talking to tech support back in the days at Coleman, they said if it doesn't work after a couple times, it's probably not going to. Well, I'd gone through that process when it quit making power last week. I'd gone through it several times. I did get it to work once, and then I went and finished my project. I come back, wouldn't make power again. And I took this plate off, and I should have taken some pictures, but There's some things in here that are pretty simple to check. Now there's all kinds of continuity checks and resistance checks if you really want to get complicated, but you can do some really simple checks to make sure some basic things aren't malfunctioning in the generator. One of the things that really puzzled me is this only had probably less than 5 hours running time on this thing, and in clean conditions. I have not abused it, and somewhat of a light load. And in reading, which doesn't really make any sense to me, but what I've read is that if these things aren't loaded up to at least 50% capacity, they will actually, wear out the brushes quicker than running a full load, which I wouldn't think it would make any difference. But anyway, what I found, and the things that you need to check. If you take this plate off, first thing you're going to see is a big plastic, looks like half a donut, which is the voltage regulator in there. And there's 2 bolts holding the regulator in place. Remove those 2 bolts, lay the regulator over to the side, and then behind it will be the brush holder. And it's something like similar to an automotive alternator. It's a bakelite brush holder, and it's held in place by 1 bolt, and then there's a locating pin on the other side. You snap a picture with your phone or draw some pictures. Everything's marked, but it's just easier to use your phone to there's a couple wires going into the brush holder out of the regulator, so you want to remember which wire goes where. Remove that brush holder and take a look at the brushes. And then also what they call slip ring on the armature, which behind, you get a bright flashlight you can see in there. And those slip rings that the brushes ride on should be shiny. They're not going to be bright and shiny like a brand new penny, but they should be slick. And the situation here was one of them was the most rearward to the video. The most rearward was shiny, but the one closest to the camera was carboned up. There'd been a lot of arcing. And what basically had happened, I think, the brushes had worn, and it got a little hot. It was 100 degrees the day I was using it. That the brushes will stick in that brush holder, and the more they stick and the more they wear, the more arcing there is. And essentially, the one brush wasn't even making any contact with the slip ring. So what you can do is take the brush holder out, get the brushes to where they move in the brush holder, or replace them with a new brush holder, and then take some fine sandpaper, emery cloth, something like that, and clean up those slip rings to where, and they don't have to be perfectly clean, and you don't want to get too aggressive with some very coarse sandpaper. You want to keep them smooth. They're soft. These look like they were some type of brass type material. Slick those up. I got the brushes and the brush holder to operate freely, and then replaced it all back up, laid the voltage regulator back in, and bolted it all up, fired it up, and we were making power again. So apparently that's an item in here that wears out fairly quickly. Found a couple more brush holders, ordered a couple off of eBay. It's one of those situations where I think they were $4 or $5 a piece. Shipping was about the same as what the actual parts were. It appears that they're somewhat universal, or the same brush holder is used in many different generators, kind of regardless of the part number. But that seems to be something that I might want to have on hand. But anyway, I wish I had better pictures, but really, if you have any kind of mechanical aptitude and you're careful, you'll know as soon as you take this plate off what I'm talking about. Again, there was really, you take these 2 screws off here, and then there were 3 bolts inside, 2 on the regulator and then 1 holding the brush holder in place. I would think possibly if it's been setting a while, after you do this whole process, you might want to re-excite the generator if it still does not power. If you go through that, then I guess it would point you in the direction of possibly replacing the voltage regulator. Those are about $40 to $50, so you kind of got to use your own judgment there. And again, there are continuity checks and things that you can do. It's a little more complicated. I won't get into that, but just kind of a wear point. Those brushes and getting the slip rings cleaned where they make a good electrical contact between the brush, and then re-exciting the generator. Very simple steps that you can take to at least find out if the thing's going to run without going into a lot of extra work. And again, this would be, I guess I'm thinking more, I see these things at auctions, flea markets, garage sales. Well, the thing runs great, doesn't make power. This might be a quick fix to get it back into service. So, hope that helps. Hope it helps somebody out there.